I don't
Yeah,
know what you call yourself these days.
yeah, we'll just go with Zen Buro.
Hmm. All right. So today we're going to keep going with the Sanuka and how to keep your cool.
Yeah.
And wait, for some reason, um, the Kindle app is not showing up as being able to share it. Oh, that's dumb. Okay, I got it. It can't be minimized. Okay. Okay. So we're gonna spotlight that bad boy. There we go. We're gonna turn off the caption, and there we are. So we left off.
Yeah, 233.
Go for it, my dude.
All right. But the argument goes, we will be less looked down on if we avenge the wrong done to us. If we reach that point, that remedy, as it were, let's get there without anger, regarding vengeance as something useful, not pleasant. What's more, it is often better to pretend rather than to get payback. The wrongs done by the powerful should be received not just patiently, but with a cheerful expression. For if they think they've achieved their goal, they'll do it again. Those whose minds have grown scornful due to their great fortunes have this as their worst failing. Those whom they've hurt, they also hate. There's that very famous saying of a man who had grown old serving under monarchs. When someone asked him how he'd obtained that thing which is most rare at court, old age, he said, oh, sorry, my Kindle just randomly turned off. He
Oh,
said, by accepting hurts and saying thank you. Often it is so disadvantageous to avenge a wrong that it's advantageous to not even admit one has occurred. Caligula once held in custody the son of a distinguished Roman knight, Pastor, and grew annoyed at the young man's elegance and very well-groomed hair. When the boy's father asked that, for his sake, the boy be kept safe, Caligula, acting as though that request had been a suggestion of capital punishment, ordered the boy brought up for summary execution. Then, in order not to seem cruel toward the father in every way, he invited Pastor to dinner that day. Pastor arrived, his face showing no displeasure. The emperor had a cask of wine sent to him and set a guard over him. Pastor, though wretched, summoned the strength to drink it, felt like drinking his son's blood. Caligula sent him a festive ointment and garlands to wear, and ordered the guard to watch whether he would use them. He did. On the very day when he had laid out his son for burial, or rather, could not lay him out, Pastor reclined and revelled in a crowd of a gout-stricken old man downing drinks that would scarcely be suitable for his children's birthdays. All the while he shed no tear and allowed no sign of grief to burst forth. He banqueted as though celebrating the success of his plea for his son. Why did he do it, you ask? He had another son. I would have had scorn for the father if he had merely been afraid, but the fact is that a sense of duty suppressed his anger. He deserved to be allowed to leave the banquet and gather up his son's bones. But Caligula, that generous and kindly young man, did not allow even this. He kept on provoking the old man with more and more toasts, bidding him lighten his cares. Pastor, for his part, gave the appearance of cheerfulness and of having forgotten what had happened that day. If he had displeased the butcher as a dining companion, his other son would have been a goner.
yeah. So I'm really interested to hear what you think about this one.
Yeah, this one is fascinating because one line that caught my eye early on was when he was talking about if we reach that point about avenging the wrong done to us, like regard vengeance as something useful, not pleasant.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that was interesting because oftentimes when people seek revenge, like it's not even to right or wrong, but like to satisfy ourselves in a way.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking about life, like the media that comes out nowadays about revenge stories and stuff. Like, explore those themes. Like, are they doing the revenge because out of some twisted need to satisfy themselves, or like, are they actually doing it out of duty?
Exactly.
Yeah, and the story about how the man acted as like an amiable dining companion to Caligula, who was, as the Roman histories tell us, was a very violent and unstable emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not
Among
sure if anyone is familiar with his history, but he was known to like just have people executed randomly and would just like, yeah,
Yeah, he was
crazy.
among the most unstable emperors in Roman history.
Yeah,
And Rome had a lot of bad emperors.
yeah, and Caligula, given his reputation for instability of mind, it would make sense that this father would act out of duty because he has another son, and Caligula wasn't above just executing a whole family if they displeased him.
Not
So,
only that, but like I also think in the Roman mind it would be possible for the other son to seek vengeance.
yeah, that too. It would just create this violent cycle of bloodshed and death, basically.
Yeah. Like I mean, okay, so vengeance, one of the reasons I wanted to know what you thought is because vengeance is something we don't really like in the Roman world, vengeance was a common thing.
Right,
And we don't really have vengeance in everyday society unless you're talking about things like turf wars and stuff like that in illegal circles. So like
right.
this passage stands out to the modern reader as being markedly confined to a certain kind of society, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a place for a discussion about vengeance in modern society?
I'm trying to think like specific examples. I mean, if you want to talk about socializing and how people can develop grievances and dislike for other people,
Yeah,
like let's say in a work environment such as a grocery store, because that's where I worked a lot.
a lot.
Yeah, so I've managed to like hear gossip and talk to people about other people they don't like. And it's like people engage in these petty types of revenge behavior, as I call them, where like they won't do something that, let's say, a manager asked them to do, or they would do it out of resentment,
Yeah.
hardly out of the cheerfulness that our man Pastor did. And I don't know, like this example was about how a Roman was trying to survive and help his family survive and stop cycles of revenge against an emperor. I don't know if that would apply to like the example I'm bringing up.
That's fair.
Yeah, but I would say like people do engage in, I would call them revenge plays. Yeah,
Okay.
it's just the consequences of it usually don't involve violence.
Right.
In fact, if violence does occur, it's usually reactive. I I have not encountered anyone who's calculated like a revenge plot, if that makes sense. Like, you know, they set up, they manipulated people a certain way and then just set them up to like fall, basically.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying?
I should tell you a story later. All right. Um, admittedly, dude, I used to kind of be that kind of person.
Yeah.
Like, I was known as the dude that if you really messed with me,
Hmm.
I would destroy your social network. completely.
Yeah.
That was how I usually did things. I don't do that anymore, but so there's that.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why I was wondering. My original question is like, is there?
A
Which is
place.
why I asked you. Yeah.
A place for that kind of revenge, or
Yeah. Because sometimes when I would do stuff like that, it would literally be to impart. It's weird. It would be to like teach the person that you can't just go around doing whatever you want to people and expect there to be no consequence.
yeah.
Like very often to me when because I might be misphrasing it, but like earlier in the same passage, Seneca talked about if you must seek vengeance to basically be sure that it's not revenge, i.e., vengeance wrought out of anger, but rather as something necessary, right?
Right.
And so when I would do stuff like that, I usually did it in like high school, and I did it a couple times like after high school, and it was because like somebody royally screwed me over. Like one dude I knew was a literal pedophile, so I burned him hard.
Mhm.
I took his entire hard drive and uploaded it to the internet
Yeah.
anonymously, and then told people where they could find it. um, you know what I'm saying? So there was stuff like that, and to me, it was because those types of actions need consequences. Like if you go around and like your job is to like bully people, that's how you see it, right?
Right.
Like there are things other than violence that hurt more.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I would sit there and I would be friends with the dude and I would learn, like, oh, these are his friends. These are the people he's closest to. This is how he acts.
Yeah.
And then when he would inevitably go back to bullying someone I cared about on a regular basis, it was done.
Yeah.
Um, am I proud of it? Not really. But sometimes I think that certain kinds of people um, go around acting as though there are no consequences to doing ill thing like shitty things to people, and that they can do whatever they want. And for those people, I think, to me personally, as an individual, like I'm not advocating this as Seneca saying it, even though technically he did. I think if you can pull it off,
Yeah.
and that is your reason to literally impart a lesson to somebody, and you're sure you can do it, I say go for it. But that's me as a person.
That's interesting because one of the things I thought about as you were speaking was I was thinking about some stories from Zen Buddhism. And I was talking to one of my friends about this yesterday about how
By the way, this is a soda. I'm not day drinking, dudes.
yeah. Yeah, Zen Buddhism is an interesting philosophy slash religion, if you want to categorize it that way.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of interesting parallels and differences.
Yeah, so some of the stories that I've read are of Zen teachers who they. So to anyone who doesn't know, Zen is very indirect. Like unlike Stoicism, some of the lessons imparted you kind of have to think about and um, figure out what it means. Like some Zen masters were actually kind of violent towards their students, or they would answer their questions in a way that just didn't make sense.
Right.
And part of the reason was like to impart a lesson. Those Zen teachers who seemed angry and yelled a lot, like they weren't really actually angry. They were just trying to have students realize like, oh, all these preconceptions that you've had about life, about talking to people, about taking a dump at the toilet, like all of that, like all of that isn't going to help you understand what Zen actually is.
Right.
They're trying to wake you up.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking about that and how like not taking revenge, but having people Sorry, I got distracted. There's too many noises out there.
No, I can.
Having people realize that there are consequences to their actions. I would say that's perfectly in line with what old Zen teachers would try to do. So I don't even think this is against this what Seneca is talking about. I just think that specific example he brought up was just very politically sensitive,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and like sometimes I think, things are complicated and I wouldn't have done it if I was unsure that I could do it.
Right,
Like I was very sure of my social skills and my ability to read people.
right.
I still am.
Mhm.
So if I wasn't sure I could do it, I would find another way or I would walk away.
Right,
I wouldn't half-assedly do it and then like not be able to take the blow back. In other words,
right.
um, so yeah, I mean that's kind of why I wanted to ask the question because I have done stuff like that,
Hmm.
and you know, I yeah,
Right. So does my example make sense?
it does, it does.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, don't do what I did. Don't,
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, don't. I don't really do it anymore, but yeah. You want to read? You want to keep reading? Because I feel like I suck at reading out loud.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Hold on.
All right. So 234. We must then hold back our anger, whether the one who needs to be taken on is our equal, our better, or our inferior. To fight with an equal is a chancy affair, with a better, insane, with an inferior, tawdry. It is the act of a cowardly and base person to seek redress from one who bites him. Mice and ants turn to face you if you raise your hand to them. Only weak things think they're being wounded if they're touched. It will make us gentler if we consider how that person, the one we're angry at, has helped us in the past. His offense will win pardon from his merits. Keep this too in mind, how much praise a reputation for mercy will bring us, how many people our kindness will turn into valuable friends. And let's not be angry at the children of our enemies and foes. It's one of the examples of Sulla's cruelty that he removed from the citizen roles the children of those he proscribed. There's nothing more unjust than for someone to become the heir of hatred incurred by his father. Let's consider every time we find it hard to forgive, whether it's to our benefit that everyone be implacable. Is it implacable or implacable?
I think it's implacable.
Implacable.
Think of implacable as being related to the word placate.
Okay. How often has the one who refused mercy later sought it? How often has someone thrown himself at the feet of the man he earlier spurned from his own? What is more glorious than to change one's wrath into friendship? Whom do the Roman people consider more trustworthy allies than those they once considered the most obstinate foes? What would our empire be today if a wholesome foresight had not intermingled the conquered with the conquerors? Someone gets angry, have at him with your good deeds. The quarrel immediately drops away if abandoned by either side. There's no fight unless on equal terms. Anger flares up on both sides and there's a clash. The better party is the one that steps back first. It's the winner who's defeated. Someone hits you, retreat. By getting violent in return, you'll only give an opening and a pretext for more frequent violence. And you won't be able to get free of it later when you want to.
Seneca says a lot of interesting things
Yeah.
in this passage also. And like what I tend to like about Seneca is he tends to say things in a way that at first seem at odds with each other until you see the statement completely unfold.
Right.
Um, like you said, who does a Roman think of as the most trustworthy allies, but those who were once the most obstinate foes?
Mm-hmm.
like I think that's a really interesting sentiment
Right.
because I mean, if you're always friendly with somebody, right?
Right.
Where are you? I don't see your face.
Oh, I was just leaning forward.
Oh, I literally like didn't even see your head. I just saw your chair.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
I'm practicing my genjutsu.
uh, oh God. But if you're always friendly with somebody and you never get into any sort of conflict,
Yeah.
I would argue that it's impossible that you really know them.
Mm-hmm.
Because how someone responds to conflict, and more importantly, why they respond that way, will tell you more about them than knowing them for 5 years, kind of at a distance on this weird sort of pseudo friend,
Right.
acquaintance level.
Yeah.
And,
And
go
yeah, go ahead.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say, that's when you know, like if you feel uncomfortable bringing up a topic with someone you consider a friend, like you've never brought it up before,
Right.
and you're afraid because they might not be your friend or they might not like you, then you probably should reconsider what your relationship to that person actually is.
Right.
Because if you can't have those uncomfortable conversations, it's not going to develop into a strong friendship, I don't think.
No, exactly. And what do like we're the two people that I think are really good examples of that because you and I have been through a lot of conflict,
Yeah, so,
both from things like at us
mm-hmm,
from outside, like external things, and with each other.
yeah,
And like somehow we always like we found a way to like just forget about like we learned from all of the arguments and all the weird blowouts that both of us had for various reasons.
mm-hmm,
And I think it's like Seneca was saying, if you look at how that person has helped you in the past, then it'll pardon their wrongdoing. Or I forgot the word he used. It was much better than the one I chose. But I think there's a lot to that.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, I know we were both thinking like, well, this sucks, but is it really just worth throwing all this away
right,
over something admittedly both of us would be too proud to admit we both screwed up about?
yeah,
That's the other thing, like pride, dude. Like Marcus Aurelius talks constantly about like reminding himself to be humble
mm-hmm,
and
yeah,
into I said this when we spoke about Epictetus, right?
mm-hmm,
Epictetus advises his beginner students when somebody does something stupid to say to themselves, it seemed right to him.
right,
Marcus, I forgot the passage, but Marcus literally goes through this exercise where he basically tells himself to imagine himself being put in circumstances that might give rise to the same behavior
yeah,
and do that and then let it go.
mm-hmm,
And that is the heart behind what Epictetus was saying when he said it, say to yourself, it seems right to him. He's teaching people to have at least some kind of cognitive empathy for another human being.
right,
It doesn't mean here's the thing I want to say about that. It doesn't mean you have to convince yourself that what the person did was okay with you.
yeah,
It's
exactly,
just to do enough to understand where they're coming from so that it doesn't sting so much.
right,
So that it doesn't drive you nuts. It doesn't mean you have to keep putting yourself in a situation to be disrespected.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to the thing about this passage?
Um, Yeah, it's in the heat of a conflict, it's easy to like try to escalate, and that's when you should just walk away.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no fight unless on equal terms. That's what he said. And
Yeah.
that's what he said. The better party is the one that steps back first. So, well, I had to do that yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've told you that, but I figured I'd just bring it up for the stream.
Go for it. I have a story about.
Yeah. So, I had a conflict with a coworker who, um, he was trying to say, he was trying to sell something, and the way he put it was that customers was essentially getting something for free by buying a certain quantity, and these were like already pre-rolled cannabis joints. And so
Yeah, for those of you who are new, he works at a dispensary in California.
yeah so
So
yep, so that's what he was doing, and no one had told him that he was essentially wrong and his math was incorrect. So when I brought it up to him, he got kind of offended and was trying to argue with me. Like he treated it like we were competing or something like that. But I was like, no, I just don't like your attitude and how you go about trying to tell people they're getting something for free when in fact they actually are not. And he said like, oh, it's just sales, dude. And I was like, I understand, but you got to understand, like, I'm thinking about customer service right now.
that's not just sales, bro. That's dishonest.
Yeah. And he was trying to put it as like, oh, it's just an honest hustle. I'm like, do you even know what that means?
Dude, we even talked about a better way to sell the same product.
Yeah, and he just kept escalating. So I turned my manager. I said, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. And then I walked away.
And then you were like, I'm gonna just go sit at the front desk or something.
Yeah, and it was weird because I didn't actually feel angry. If anything, I was just annoyed. But
Yeah.
and being annoyed is less less intense than like feeling the stirs of anger.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting experience for me internally as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Seneca's onto something, and when he's writing these.
I definitely think so too. And like I've mentioned this in a couple of Stoic groups that I belong to, right? Because oftentimes Seneca gets criticized for not being a real Stoic because of how his life played out.
Yeah.
But to me, like one of the leaders, one of the admins, I should say, for the one of the groups I belong to, mentioned that just because Seneca's life didn't turn out to be a great example doesn't invalidate the merit of the ideas that he's putting forth.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side of that, it's because I know what a train wreck parts of Seneca's life turned out to be
Mm-hmm.
that actually make his work valuable to me as a human being, because he struggled and failed at this constantly.
Right.
But he kept trying to like put forth new ideas to remind himself to be better. Because there's a theory that like his letters of consolation to Lucilius were really just a form that was common in Stoic practice of writing letters of consolation that you never actually sent.
Right.
So when I read Seneca's work, I find it valuable because I struggle with this crap.
Mm-hmm.
And like to know that like one of the three pillars of Roman Stoicism struggled just as much as I do.
Yeah.
And he had more social status and power than I could ever dream of having.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he still managed to put forth things that stay timeless and relevant. Like that matters to me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna summarize because we don't have a lot of time left. But like what I was gonna say is like as a kid, I mean, part of me as a child, as most like 3, 4, 5-year-olds are, they're kind of entitled, right? Because
Right.
But like my natural temperament when in conflict would be to get mad, say something, go away, cool off, and then come back and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
My my family had this habit of following me during an argument, continuing to yell at me until I became the kind of person who would just lash out back.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I share this is for those of you who struggle with anger like pretty hard. Your environment can ruin your natural temperament to the point where you think you're something else.
Yeah.
So if you're in an environment that's constantly aggravating you, know that there are better ways to deal with anger, and if those don't work, leave.
Yeah.
Just go. Like if it's your job, get another job. I know it's hard, but just because it's hard doesn't mean it's impossible.
Right.
It is hard. I'm not gonna like lie to you, dude. Like I was about to have a job and then it got canceled because COVID.
Yeah.
And then I was bummed, and then I tried to get another job and that got canceled because COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. All sorts of things outside of our control that just impede progress or certain things we were anticipating.
but remember, like putting yourself in damaging situations
Mm-hmm.
like for another reason isn't worth your sanity, dudes.
Yeah.
It's really not. Um, Given that we only have like 5 more minutes, why don't we try to do one more and then
Okay.
yeah, or close to 5 more minutes.
Or we could do a meditation reading
Oh yeah.
because this one's kind of long.
Oh, yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick one we've already read privately, or
Let's see. Actually, there was one yesterday I was gonna pick, but I chose the other one. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is.
where's it at?
It's on page 54. It's number 5.
Dang it, I flipped past it twice. Okay.
You found it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. No one could ever accuse you of being quick-witted. All right, but there are plenty of other things you can't claim you haven't got in you. Practice the virtues you can show: honesty, gravity, endurance, austerity, resignation, abstinence, patience, sincerity, moderation, seriousness, high-mindedness. Don't you see how much you have to offer beyond excuses like Cant? And yet you still settle for less. Or is it some inborn condition that makes you whiny and grasping and obsequious?
Obsequious.
Obsequious. Makes you complain about your body and curry favor and show off and leaves you so turbulent inside? No, you could have broken free a long way back, and then you would have been only a little slow. Not so quick on the uptake. And you need to work on that as well, that slowness. Not something to be ignored, let alone to prize.
What do you want to say about this one?
I kind of empathize with this a little bit because, like, I am kind of a slow person. Slow on the uptake. Or, yes, not so quick on the uptake as this passage mentioned. But I've learned over time that it's just I think about things differently, and that doesn't mean I can't show things that I'm actually good at.
Yeah.
Yeah, like keeping in mind that there are stuff you have to work on, but then also there are things that are already that you can already offer that is valuable.
Exactly.
Yeah, just realizing that it's not all like you're not you're not useless. But thinking that you are will make you useless.
Yeah, because you'll be paralyzed by doubt.
Yeah.
I'm going to read the one I picked yesterday on page 107, number 32. You know, the one that starts with "you have to assemble your life"?
Yeah, I found it.
Yeah, because I think it connects well.
Yeah.
You have to assemble your life yourself, action by action. Be satisfied if each one achieves its goal as far as it can. No one can keep that from happening. But there are external obstacles. Not to behaving with justice, self-control, and good sense. Well, but perhaps some more concrete action. But if you accept the obstacle and work with what you're given, an alternative will present itself. Another piece of what you're trying to assemble, action by action. Um, to summarize that using a common turn of phrase a la Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way.
Right.
Sometimes the things that we think are roadblocks to our progress are actually just revealing another facet of the path that we're on.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of effort to slow down
Mm-hmm.
and try to figure that out and see how that's happening.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to leave it on that positive note for those of you that might be watching this in the future and struggling with things in general. Just remember, dudes, as long as you're alive, there's always something you can do.
Yep. Exactly.
We might not always like our choices, but just like in chess, work to improve your position until you can make the moves you want to make.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I think we're gonna leave it there unless you got something else you want to send off with.
No, I think that's the perfect summation.
All right. That being said, dudes, that's it for this Sunday edition of whatever this thing is called.
Yeah.
So we'll see you guys again for more of this stuff next weekend. I
Yep.
will be back with Gimpy Bites or a disability stream either Thursday or Friday next week. So see you guys soon.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.